Hello everyone, my name is Emily, and I'm in my early 40s. Recently, I married my husband, John. John has a son from a previous marriage, Jake, who is in his early 20s. Jake is an intelligent and well-mannered young man who moved in with us to finish his studies. He quickly became a welcome part of our blended family. Adapting to this new life isn't always easy, but over time, we've all managed to make it work. Today, I want to share a story that is dear to me, the story of a day that was supposed to be simple but turned out to be unforgettable. Let me take you back to a sunny Saturday morning. John had left early for a weekend business trip, leaving Jake and me alone. I had my favorite playlist on and decided to do some chores around the house. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow, and it seemed like the perfect day to tidy up. I chose a casual outfit, a light tank top and a mini skirt, something that would allow me to move easily and be comfortable while cleaning. I knew Jake was home, but he usually slept late on weekends, so I thought I had a few hours before seeing him, humming along to the music. I walked through the living room, dusting the shelves and cleaning the surfaces, happily unaware that I was being watched. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I turned around and found Jake standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame. He was looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen before, one of curiosity and surprise. I gave him a warm smile, suppressing the slight embarrassment that washed over me. "Good morning, Jake," I said cheerfully. He blinked as if snapping back to reality and finally managed a small smile. "Good morning," he replied, though his eyes lingered a bit longer than usual. I felt like he wanted to say something, but he remained silent, watching me as I returned to my chores. As I continued cleaning, I noticed Jake had moved closer. His gaze was fixed on me, as if he was seeing me for the first time. My cheeks flushed under his scrutiny. We talked about his classes and weekend plans, but there was something in his tone, brief but reflective, that distracted me. At one point, I reached for a photo frame on a high shelf, and my skirt rode up slightly. I glanced over my shoulder and noticed his eyes widen. He quickly looked away, but his reaction sent a small shiver down my spine that I hadn't expected. Just then, I misjudged my balance and stumbled slightly. Before I could steady myself, I felt his hands on my waist, firm and secure. "Thanks," I murmured. "No problem," he responded, his voice barely a whisper. For the rest of the morning, Jake stayed close, helping me with the cleaning. Every accidental brush of our hands seemed to intensify an unspoken energy between us. Finally, I decided it was time for a break and suggested we sit down. We settled on the couch, a bit quieter than usual. I broke the silence with a casual question, and Jake responded with a sincerity that made my heart beat faster. There was a warmth in his words, a connection I couldn't ignore. We sat in silence, sharing glances that seemed to reveal more than our words. Every gesture, every look seemed charged with meaning that we both understood but neither dared to voice. At one point, our hands brushed, and the simple contact seemed to ignite something between us. He looked at me with an intensity one hadn't seen before, and before I could stop myself, our unspoken emotions filled the space between us. The connection was palpable, and every word, every gesture seemed to confirm that we were crossing into uncharted but undeniably real territory. Suddenly, the sound of the front door opening shattered the moment. My husband had returned earlier than expected. Panic flashed in Jake's eyes as we quickly moved apart, the spell broken. That night, the tension was evident, though unspoken. Over the following days, Jake and I kept our distance, but the connection remained, hidden just beneath the surface. Eventually, we had an honest conversation. Jake spoke calmly, acknowledging that perhaps we had let a moment carry us away. His words gave me clarity. We both knew we didn't want to risk what we had built as a family. We decided to leave that day as a special memory, something that had brought us closer in an unexpected way but didn't need to be more than that. Over time, things returned to normal. Our relationship transformed into a stronger, more respectful bond. Looking back, I feel grateful for what I learned about myself and about human connections, and for how that day strengthened the ties we share as a family. But the story doesn't end there. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself reflecting more on that day. There was something about the way Jake had looked at me, the way his touch had lingered, that stayed with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to our connection than just a fleeting moment. I began to notice the little things, the way he would smile at me across the dinner table, the way he would linger in the kitchen when I was cooking, always finding an excuse to be near me. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Jake came into the kitchen. He stood close to me, his presence filling the room. I could feel the tension between us, the unspoken words hanging in the air. He reached for a knife, his hand brushing against mine, and I felt that familiar spark. I looked up at him, and our eyes met. There was a question in his gaze, a silent plea for something more. "Emily," he started, his voice soft but filled with emotion. "I can't stop thinking about that day. About you." I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "Neither can I," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. He reached out and took my hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "I don't know what this is," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "But I know I can't ignore it anymore." I looked down at our hands, then back up at him. "I feel it too," I confessed, my voice trembling slightly. "But Jake, this is complicated. You're my stepson, and I'm married to your father." He nodded, his expression serious. "I know. And I've thought about it a lot. But Emily, what we feel, it's real. And I think it's worth exploring, no matter how complicated it is." I hesitated, my mind racing with thoughts and fears. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw the same confusion and longing that I felt. I took a deep breath and made a decision. "Okay," I said softly. "Let's see where this takes us. But we have to be careful, Jake. We can't let this destroy what we have." He smiled, his eyes lighting up with hope. "I promise, Emily. We'll take it slow. We'll figure it out together." And so, we began a secret journey, exploring our feelings for each other while navigating the complexities of our situation. We stole moments together, sharing whispered conversations and stolen kisses when no one was looking. Every touch, every glance was filled with a mix of excitement and fear, knowing that what we were doing was wrong but unable to stop ourselves. As the weeks turned into months, our bond grew stronger. We found solace in each other, a connection that transcended the boundaries of our blended family. We laughed together, cried together, and shared our deepest fears and hopes. Jake became more than just my stepson, he became my confidant, my partner in this forbidden dance. But we knew that our secret couldn't stay hidden forever. The weight of our deception grew heavier with each passing day, and the fear of being discovered loomed over us like a dark cloud. We began to argue more, the stress of our situation taking a toll on our relationship. One night, as we lay in bed together, I turned to Jake, my eyes filled with tears. "Jake, we can't keep doing this," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "It's tearing us apart. And it's not fair to John. He deserves better than this." Jake looked at me, his expression pained. "I know, Emily. I know. But the thought of losing you, it's unbearable." I took his hand, squeezing it tightly. "We have to end this, Jake. Before it's too late. Before we destroy everything." He nodded, his eyes filled with unshed tears. "You're right. We have to let go." And so, with heavy hearts, we made the difficult decision to end our secret affair. We promised to keep our distance, to try and move on with our lives as if nothing had happened. But we both knew that the memories of our time together would forever be etched in our hearts. In the days that followed, we avoided each other, the pain of our decision too raw to bear. John noticed the change in our behavior, but he didn't say anything, attributing it to the usual ups and downs of family life. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the ache in my heart. Jake spent more time out with friends, trying to fill the void that our separation had left, but despite our best efforts, the connection between us remained. We would catch each other's gaze across the room, a silent acknowledgement of the love that still lingered between us. We would find excuses to be in the same room, even if it was just to be near each other. One day, as I was sitting in the garden, lost in thought, Jake approached me. He sat down beside me, his expression serious. "Emily, I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I can't pretend that I don't love you. That I don't need you in my life." I looked at him, my heart aching with longing. "Jake, we can't," I started, but he interrupted me. "I know we can't be together, Emily. But I can't live like this anymore. I need to move out, to give us both the space we need to heal." Tears filled my eyes as I realized the truth in his words. "You're right," I said softly. "It's the only way." And so, with heavy hearts, we made the decision for Jake to move out. It was a painful goodbye, filled with tears and promises to stay in touch. But we both knew that it was the right thing to do, for both of us and for John. As I watched Jake drive away, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the love that we had lost, but relief that we had finally made the right decision. I turned to John, who had been watching the scene with a look of confusion on his face. "Emily, what's going on?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. That I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that was to come. "John, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "About Jake and me." And so, I told him everything. The truth about our feelings, about our secret affair, and about our decision to end it. It was a difficult conversation, filled with tears and anger. But in the end, John forgave me, and we began the slow process of rebuilding our marriage. Looking back on that day, I realized that it was a turning point in my life. A day that started out simple but turned into something unforgettable. It taught me about the complexities of love, the strength of forgiveness, and the power of honesty. And though the journey was painful, it ultimately led me to a place of greater understanding and self-discovery.